Okay, so Bookshare is going to be our first AMP that we're going to look at. There's some quick facts about Bookshare. Qualifying students can be added to an organization that already has an organizational membership, or they can apply for their own free membership. This membership remains free as long as the individual is enrolled in an institution as a student, and this includes both K-12 and post-secondary. So anything beyond high school is also covered. Books are usually text files or DAISY text files. They can also be downloaded, by the way, as Braille files for those who want that. That's kind of a nice option. Bookshare also offers integration with several apps. It doesn't have what I would call an official app these days. They used to say that, there was one or the other that was preferred, but now it's more of an open sort of deal. The books can be navigated because of the file types. They can be navigated by page, section. A lot of them can be searched. It really depends on how you're accessing the book and what file type you're accessing. Bookshare also has a variety of titles ranging from pleasure reading to textbooks. So they have quite the selection. And if you are a bookworm, that approximately $50 a year that you would pay for this would be well worth it. It's, again, if you're post-secondary at all, it's free, or if you're in a K-12 institution, but otherwise it's about $50 a year-ish. And again, if you ask me, pretty darn well worth it. So Bookshare, accessing materials. So how do you get it? What's nice about Bookshare is there are just lots and lots of ways to get your files. You can get Braille files, text files, Word files, any kind of file you want. So there's a lot of different ways. So here are some resources. I just kind of want to show it has a Bookshare. Another great thing about it is it has extremely robust help section. Their technical support is amazing. So if there's any questions that you have, if you can't find it in their help section and you call them, I have never been steered wrong by them. They're absolutely amazing. So, so many ways to read. I'm just going to open this PDF just to show you that there are a lot of ways and how they have them lined up. So you can read on a tablet or a smartphone, and then it has all of these. And I'm just going to, I can't see. I still can't see it, but now hopefully you can. So you can read it on a smartphone or tablet, a computer, or there's other hardware devices. There's different Braille displays or Braille note takers or audio players that you can access these files on. So any way you want to be able to get them, they're definitely available for you. There's that. And there's also, you can do them on the web. You can do web readers. So, which is really important for some of these schools that are Chromebook schools. Being able to access them on the web, it has been a very important aspect, especially because, if you are a Chromebook school, you're not going to have a lot of these other tablets and things lying around. So it's important to be able to access it on the actual computer that the student is using as a device for their school. There's also the web reader that's, they have Snap and Read and Read and Write integrations, and those are, there's some YouTube video links for those too. And the reason I'm going through this is because there just are a lot of links, and there's just so many different things. Like I said, the help section in there is extremely robust. So there's all these different demonstrations of these various ways to access it. What I have found with a lot of our students is that you can have, what I found helpful the last few years is that you can use Safari to download Bookshare books and open them in an iBook reader on an iPad. And that makes it so that if your organization were to, for example, have issues with, like you can't download apps or content is blocked or things like that, sometimes using that Safari and that native iBooks app will kind of get you around that a little bit. So I've appreciated that and used that at times. there's Voice Dream Reader, which I have to be honest is my absolute favorite way to get the content from Bookshare. It's very, very robust. It allows a lot of different things. And what the thing that I like probably the best about it, and if I wish I had a an actual link to how it would look, but what I really like about that Voice Dream Reader is that the text can be so adjusted so minutely. Different colors, different sizes, background colors, foreground colors. I like green on black because there's not a lot of glare to it. And I'm a really big fan of that. But that works also if you have a student with a learning challenge that for some reason they work better with different sizes or types of fonts or colors, especially, can be extremely can be a huge game changer for some of these guys. And I love the way that these apps are really taking that into account, because it's not about aesthetics, and we all know that it's not about it looking pretty. It's nice that they can experiment with the fact that it was looking pretty. I had a kid that wanted to know what pink on purple looked like, and I just wanted to know. Oh, it just about made my eyes bleed, but now she knows. And she had fun with it for a little bit before she realized it wasn't functional for her. And that's important. That kind of skill is important to learn. So let's not leave out Android. Also, Android has Go Read, which is funny. It's a freebie on Android. At least it was the last time I checked. And it's also a robust option. Interestingly enough, you can read Bookshare books on your National Library Service NLS player. If you're not familiar with those, that's through like the Library of Congress to qualify you as a student with a disability or a person with a disability. You can load those onto cartridges and read them. If you don't want a visual or need a visual display, it would be completely audio. There's a lot of resource links. Here's the training library, is amazing. I just want to show you what that looks like. I'm just feel like such a fangirl, because this is where all of these resources live. And as you can see, they're in all sorts of types. And what's cool about it, and I'm just going to kind of zoom in here a little bit, is it shows you, like, there's a key. This is a video. I can tell that's a PDF because I can see that it's red. It's color coded, which is great, and just picture coded so that you can see what kind of resources, if you're looking for a specific kind, you can find it. So I think that's just super great. I love their training library. Just 1.5 million resources if you need to know how to use it. There's an educator getting started guide about creating an organization. If you don't have an organization created for your district, it can show you how to do that. And I'm not really familiar with that, to be honest with you. I work with students a lot on their individual accounts. And speaking of which, there's a guide on getting individual accounts and qualifying disabilities, things like that. So that's really super important. As a aside, I'm a really big fan of working with kids and their parents, because, obviously you can't just work with a kid that's, under the age of 18 and just say, here's an account. Yeah, you don't do that. So you work with the kids and their families, and I really like to get them their individual Bookshare account. And the reason I like to do that is because they're not going to be students at your school forever. And sometimes organizations, the way the organizations are set up, sometimes ours are set up with different apps where our kids have a hard time looking for their own books. And for some reason, there's some sort of a setup restriction in there, and we never did figure out, as far as I know, we don't know why that is. So a lot of times I'll work with kids and get them their own account that they can put on their own devices that are theirs. And then there's a school account that are on the school devices that belong to the school. And that way, if they need books placed manually on their bookshelf for them to get, they've got that school device. And if they want to do some recreational reading outside of that, there's their personal device if they have a personal device, and most kids do. And if they don't, there's always a way for them to work with a resource teacher or somebody to help them get those books and things on their accounts, because I know very few teachers that will say no to that kind of a request. So that's a lot of information about Bookshare. Like I said, totally a huge fangirl. Are there any questions about Bookshare itself?
Amy, I don't have a question, just a quick comment as everyone's thinking here, if they have any more questions, is that one of the nice things that I always remember to do is when my students got to be 12th graders, if they didn't have an individual account, it was part of that transition thing that you stopped and you think about that and you talk to the parents about it, provide them with the information. And like you said, Bookshare's got some great resources for parents too, just to make sure those kids, when they leave you, they can still have access to books. Because again, just because you leave school does not mean you can stop reading, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's so true. And one thing I did want to mention while I'm talking about it on the topic, just because I find this so interesting, is Bookshare actually has their own sort of philosophy about reading, which is so cool. I really appreciate it. I had one time I had a parent call and say that they didn't necessarily like their child's choices in books, and asked about asked, well, is there a way to restrict what kind of books they can look for? And this particular student was 16, 17, probably may have been making choices that their parents maybe might not have cared for, and who knows what they were, and it doesn't really matter. But I called Bookshare at the behest of the parent and the principal, and I said, hey, this is the concern that the parent has, and the Bookshare representative said, well, is the student, getting the books on their own, on their personal account? And I said, yep. And they said, well, this is how we see it. We see it as if you walk into a bookstore and you're a sighted person and you can read and you have no reading barriers at all, you can pick up a book and you can look at it and you can buy it, because no one's going to tell you can't. Most of the time in libraries, the same thing is true, unless it's really explicit material, in which case, there's probably an age rating. But for the most part, you can walk into an institution or a store, look at the books, and whatever. So that's their policy about how Bookshare works. Well, you have an account, go in there, you get the books. It's not it. They figure it as, and if you'll pardon the language, it's not their business to police the reading choices of their patrons. So just as a heads up to you of how that works, I've actually found it quite fascinating. So, okay, so no questions?
Amy, I'm just going to jump in with one more point on that transition front. I think that was, first of all, those resources that you shared are fantastic, because that training resource library is unbelievable through Bookshare. But on that transition lens too, and I know you had it in your slide deck, and Bookshare is something that continues. So if the student is going on to post-secondary education, this is another way to, not only for the personal reading that they're going to continue beyond, post-secondary, but also if they're going to continue their education, right? A lot of the colleges, university, technical schools are, they can have these accounts available. I just think that's worth noting, because those then continue to be free for the student as long as they are enrolled in post-secondary education. So I appreciate you including that on that slide.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a major important point. So Learning Ally, if you're, the more time that passes and longer I'm in this field, I want to say, if you're old like me, you remember when they used to call it Recordings for the Blind and Dyslexic back in the day. And they rebranded themselves right in early 2000s or so as Learning Ally, and expanded themselves a bit into, hoping that they could kind of get out there a little more. Learning Ally is another similar to Bookshare, in that a student has to have a documented disability, which may include or similar to blindness, learning, or physical limitations that again would make holding a book or reading a challenge. Books from Learning Ally, interestingly enough, are read by not all of them, but a lot of them are read by live readers. And some students have a very strong preference for that. That's the one thing about Bookshare that some of my students just can't listen to, no matter how good the synthesized speech is. And there's some pretty good synthesized speech out there. A lot better when I was a kid, and you would have this mono, oh, I can't even do it. It's so annoying. So they're read by live volunteer readers, and I'm sure now they pay them. I'm sure there are some that are paid, but what now they do is there's electronic, and there's this newer, it's not new anymore, but it's newer, the voice text option, which I'll show you in a bit. Books are also set up in this way to be navigated by page or section, like in DAISY format. The Learning Ally library tends to be more textbooks, academic reading, things that you would read in school, not entirely, but I think kind of more so than not. The other thing about Bookshare to be cognizant of is that this one does have a cost, whether it is to the individual or the institution and organization. There is a cost to having access to Learning Ally, which is why some schools may not have it. Unless you're old like me, again, when back in the day, when you paid a one-time fee of like $100 or something to be a lifelong member. And I am still a lifelong member. And I think I got that thing about 25, 30 years ago. So, and they honor it, which is super cool. But that's neither here nor there. I just think it's kind of funny. Learning Ally books are accessible and available across multiple devices and platforms, just like Bookshare, but they do have what they're going to call like official ways to get them. So there is an official Learning Ally app called Learning Ally Link. That is how you get the books. That's the choice. So it's a great option. There's a PDF here that talks about it, how to get it, how it works, all of that stuff. And Learning Ally Link, interestingly enough, is both software on the computer, and it is also an app. So it's really interesting how it's set up. I gotta be honest, I don't use the software very much, if at all. Our students have access to it, and I don't know one single student who's actually used it, but hey, I'm not going to complain having it been available, you know. Android and Google also have the Learning Ally Links app, so it's that, and iOS. The Chrome Web Store actually has an extension, so if your institution allows for Chrome extensions, you can get, oops, I'm really good at getting, apparently I can do this with the mouse when I'm in presentation mode in Zoom, but I didn't know that. You can do it through the Mac store as well. So lots of different ways to get that app. Learning Ally voice text versus the classic audio. And I included an embedded video here because the classic audio and the voice text are two different things. I prefer the voice text. I think it's great, especially if you need a student, if you have one of those kids that needs to have the audio, but you really like them to have access to having highlighted text at the same time. And what's really cool is that the voice text is a human narrated way, where the books and the highlighted text match up. It's not always human. Sometimes it's electronic, but it's I'm not sure what the more modern books are these days. And I feel like it's probably a healthy mix, but there's also the classic audio, which are human read and recorded by subject matter. And usually they do picture image descriptions, which is great. And like I said, there's going to be some readers that are going to be better at that kind of thing than others. But I would, if you've got some time, I would look at this, see what classic audio versus that voice text looks like, because I honestly, when I can, I will do that with my kids. There are resource links here as well. Getting started with devices is a really big one, because obviously you've got some options there, and it'll tell you, it's really interesting that it's giving you like download our software and access with your membership. And it kind of gives you some options and some visuals here. This is what I was talking about, the audio, the text with highlighting with the voice text on this page. What's nice about it is a lot of time they talk about having the students be able to adjust the speed, having them be able to go back a little bit easier, and monitor usage. So if you've got that one kid, there's always one in your class at least, that you assign the reading and you get halfway through the semester and you can look at their account and you go, they did not open that book at all. And then kind of start asking questions like, hey, are you having trouble getting it? Do you understand how to get it? Stuff like that, to kind of help them out, because sometimes it's not about refusal. It's about lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of practice. Not every kid is then don't get me wrong, there are some of them, we all know that there are, that are just gonna not open books because they don't want to, but some of them they want to, and they just need that extra check-in and a little extra help with it. There's a lot of webinars and getting started with Teacher Ally. What's really cool is there's a reading challenge in Learning Ally right now. And I don't know how many schools or organizations are enrolled, but it goes for the entire month of February, and it's how many pages, I believe it is, can you read? And it's particularly neat because they like give out prizes to the schools and the kids. So it's really super cool. And I'm saying this because I'm super proud of our kids, but our school is in like 10th place nationally right now. Again, I don't know how many schools compete, maybe there's 12, but hey, that doesn't mean we're not in 10th place, right? And the top 10 schools and top readers in those schools are recognized by Learning Ally. And I think that's a really nice thing that they do to kind of encourage that lifelong reading. So I just wanted to slide that one in there. I'm pretty impressed, I gotta say. They also have some material about how to sign up and who might qualify for the services. Sometimes I think if you have like smaller schools or students that get homeschooling services, sometimes that can be a little bit trickier. Sometimes school districts, if they don't have an organizational institution or an organizational account for their institution, will put it learning access to Learning Ally within the student's IEP. And again, it is totally an IEP decision. One person doesn't get to make that choice, just because of the importance for some of our kids to have real voices, because some kids just cannot read the electronic voices. And I'm sure you all have met at least one of those. And it can be due to a hearing impairment, it can be to an attention deficit, it can just be that they just plain don't like it, and it just can't adjust. So that's Learning Ally. Oh, and I did want to say the Teacher Ally is a great tool. I use this a lot to assign books to the kids. If I have a teacher that wants them to have access to a particular textbook, I can just assign that textbook to a kid, put it on their account, and when the next time they log into their Learning Ally link, that textbook is right there on their bookshelf, and all they have to do is download it. It's like right in their face, and you can't miss it. So that's kind of a neat one.